Good morning. Good to see everybody. Wait a few minutes till everyone gets on. We are now at our 40th wedding anniversary. My children made us an event here. We are in Ohio, and all my grandchildren are in the house. I wouldn't be able to do this class inside, but I did want to welcome everyone. Today's the day after Tu B'Av, a very special day on the Jewish calendar. And it's 45 days away from Rosh Hashanah. A lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to prepare. So we're going to start off with everyone giving tzedakah. Please put in a penny or a coin. Gedel tzedakah shemikareves es haga'ula. And we'll start off with chapter 20. If you would like us to do any Tehillim, for anyone specifically, I do want to make a shout out to Megan and Brandon, a young couple who just got married last night, and to Sharon and Stephen Radis, also who just got married last night, two young couples from our community, wishing them that they should build a Bayis Ne'eman B'Yisrael, a home that is based on Torah. And we'll start off with our Tehillim, so please put down names. Good morning, Dorit. Good morning, Barbara. Yes, I see Miriam Bas Gilda. Okay, please put down any names, and we will start with chapter Chaf. Lamnatzeach Mizmar LeDavid. Yancha Adonai B'Yom Tzara. Yisagefcha Hashem Elohei Yaakov. Yishlach Ezracha Mikodesh U'Mitzion Yisadeka. Yiskar Kol Mechasecha V'Alascha Yidash Nesela. Yiten Lecha Chalavecha V'Chol Atzascha Yimalei. Nirana B'Shuasecha U'V'Shem Eloheinu Nidgol. Yimalei Adonai Kol Mashal Asecha. Ati Yadati Ki Hoshia Adonai Mishicho Yaneu Mishmekotra B'Gvuras Yesha Yamino. Ele V'Recha Ve'ele Basusim V'Nachnu B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Naskir. Heim Akaru V'Nafolu V'Nachnu Kamnu V'Disodad Adonai Hoshia HaMelech Yanenu B'Yom Karenu. Yeah, look at this magnificent nature Hashem created. A gorgeous, gorgeous world. And every time I sit in places like this, I just think of the pasuk, Mo Rabu Masecha Hashem. How beautiful is your world. And we never take anything for granted. Hashem's magnificent gift to us as humans. And all He asks for us is to make him a dira b'tachtonim, a dwelling place here in this world. And that's what we're doing here. We are in a place called Nirvara, Ohio. Nirvara, Ohio. I actually, we were sitting with my children the other day at this barn, and we were doing a little scavenger hunt, and I said to them, why don't we do the 12 psukim? I bet you since Hashem created the world, there were no Torah psukim said at this spot. And it was just adorable how all the grandchildren stood up on chairs and we started to say Torah, Shema, V'Ahavta, all the 12 psukim that the Rebbe, chose for us. And the children were singing, we want Mashiach now. And I thought, this is what we do. We elevate our world, right? We're here on a beautiful vacation. But wherever we go, we have to, what's called, be Mivar Nitzutzim. We have to elevate the sparks. Because there are sparks of holiness everywhere that are concealed. And every time we make a blessing on our food, every time we learn something, any Torah, every time we make a prayer, and a place like this, we are elevating the godly sparks, because the godly sparks everywhere. So, welcome everyone. Good morning, Becky from Israel. Do we have anyone else from out of town? Please let me know where you're listening from. Good morning, my Toronto friends. Today, I want to talk about the living legacy. So, everyone knows about a will that we make for our children. But there's something called a living will. Hi, Dorit. We have Douglas, Ben Patricia, Dorit, Bas Aliza. Has anybody ever heard of a living will? Now, tell me if you give me a thumbs up if you've ever heard of a living will, or you've made one for your children. Have you ever heard of this concept, a living will? So let me tell you a little bit what a living will is. A living will is explaining to your children what you believe in, what your mission statement is. What is your goal in life? And we assume that our children know. They know what we want. They know what we live for. They know what we would die for. I don't have to tell them. Well, that's a very false assumption. Children don't know. And we have to live it in a way that it's the most obvious to our children who we are, what we stand for. If God, Judaism, our heritage, Israel, Achdus, prayer, if any of these things mean something to you, your children should know emphatically what that is, why that's important to you, and why they should carry on your living will. So we spent 3 days with our children right here. I'll show you around a little bit. This is like 147 acres, apparently. And we spent the last few days with our children right here, singing with them, going for walks with them, sitting around the campfire, with the kumsitz, with songs, with farbrengen, learning, davening together, having skits, having night activities. What do we do this for? We want our children to understand that each one of them, by extension, because they are our grandchildren, share in our legacy. You know that we are shluchim of the Rebbe, and our life mission has been to spread Judaism, to live Judaism, and to love Judaism. And we've tried to give that over to our children and our grandchildren. And so we're spending time with them now, giving them that message, that it should be obvious that they should want to continue that legacy. Because the reason why you and I are all here is because our parents shared their living legacy with us. For those of us who come and are families of survivors, whether it's from the Holocaust, whether it's from Sephardic families, whether it's from Israel, Canadian families, our parents have a heritage. They have a legacy. And they've survived through all these hundreds of generations so that we can live as proud Jews here today. And today, the fact that we are struggling so much with anti-Semitism and our connection to our homeland, do our children know how much we love Israel? Do our children know how much it means to us? So I'm going to share with you something that I shared with the women in Shul this Shabbat. And it's actually based on the Parsha that we read last week. Anybody know what last week's Parsha was, by the way? Put it into the comments. Or give me a thumbs up if you know what the Parsha was. The Parsha was Va'etchanan, and I will plead. I will pray. I will beseech. Who was beseeching in this week's Parsha? Anybody know? In this week's Parsha, Moshe, very good to it. Moshe was begging God, please let me go into, finish the statement, into the land of Israel. He begged God, please let me go. And God became angry. And Moshe tells the Jewish people that God became angry, and I will quote, God became angry with me and he did not listen to me. God said to me, it is too much for you. Do not continue to speak to me further about this matter. See, here we have Moses. For 40 years, he led the Jews through the desert, giving them the Torah, Mount Sinai. He lived through the Ten Commandments, the splitting of the sea. He went through 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. He put up with all of their shtick, whether it was Korach, whether it was Datan and Aviram, whether it was Miriam's well, it was Lush. How much did Moshe go through? Right, guys? He took the Jews through this tremendous journey, and now all he asks from God is to let me come into Israel. And what does God say to him in this parsha? no, you will not make it into Israel. He says, can my bones at least be buried in Israel? And God said, no. Now, there's a question I want to pose to you. Do you know whose bones Moshe was carrying for 40 years from Egypt all the way to Israel? Do you know whose bones he was carrying? Anybody? Put it into the comments. Whose bones was Moses carrying? Exactly. Yosef's bones. For 40 years, Moshe fulfilled a promise that Yosef had beseeched and said, please take my bones and bury them. Don't leave them in Egypt. So, the Jews kept their word and carried Yosef's bones. Imagine carrying a coffin throughout the 40 years of wilderness. And then Moshe asks for one favor. I don't need you to carry my bones. Just let me go into Israel. I'll be buried there. And then Hashem says no. And then Moshe says, fine. Can you at least bury me there? And Hashem says no. So I'm going to pose the question and say, what was the difference between Yosef and Moshe? Why was Yosef gifted with being buried? We know he's buried in Shechem. Unfortunately, the Arabs burnt that whole area and the Jews can barely go there now. It's in Nablus. But nevertheless, we have Yosef's bones here in Israel. What was the difference between Yosef and Moshe? That Moshe wasn't given the kavod to be buried in Israel. And we don't know till today where he's buried. So I saw something beautiful, and I want to share this with you. Thank you to YY Jacobson. And I think it connects to the living legacy that I'm talking to you today about what I want to give over to my children and grandchildren here as we celebrate our 40th. My husband and I, as we went to sleep last night after a beautiful day with our children here in Ohio, and we're talking about, do our children know what we stand for? Do our children know what we're living for? Do our children know what is the most important in our hearts? We took a beautiful getaway here into this gorgeous, magnificent countryside in Ohio. Do our children know what is important to us? Of course, family time and kids having campfires and s'mores and swimming and walks and taking beautiful hikes in the forest here. But what is our living legacy? And I think the answer is in the Parsha. You see, we have 2 episodes with Yosef. The first episode was when Yosef was sold as a slave to Potiphar's wife. And she tried to seduce him. And of course, the last minute we're told, commentaries say, Yosef withheld from falling prey to Potiphar's wife. He saw the image of his father and he ran. And Potiphar's wife had to hold herself together and save face. So she told her husband, that Hebrew boy tried to seduce me. What word did she use to describe Yosef? A Hebrew boy. She didn't say the slave. She said that Jewish boy. There was something about Yosef that exuded his Jewish pride. Wherever he went, even when he was a slave, he was a Jewish slave. There was something that Yosef was proud of, that he never hid, that he allowed the world to see that he was proud of his Judaism, and he was a very loyal Jew. So Potiphar's wife used the word, the Hebrew, so that it probably was a deterrent and a derogatory term at that time, that Yosef was the Hebrew, but that's how she used the word to describe Yosef. Let's go on a few years later. Yosef is thrown into jail. There was a butler and a baker. They both had dreams. Yosef interpreted the dreams. And when the butler made it out of prison, Yosef said to him, "Please remember my name to Pharaoh. I am Joseph the Hebrew." Now, my friends, why did he use the name the Hebrew? Was that going to release him from jail 1 minute earlier? Hebrew wasn't a compliment in those days. Why would Yosef put himself on the line using the name, "I am Yosef the Jew. Remember me to Pharaoh so that I may be released from prison"? My friends, this is the reason why Yosef merited to be buried in Israel. Anybody see? Anybody see the correlation? Yes, Dorit, he wasn't afraid, but something even more than that. He was a proud Jew. In a place where he could have very easily hidden his Jewish identity, no one would have known. His parents were back at home. He was sent and sold to the Egyptians. There were no phones, there was no Facebook, there was no social media. No one would have known if Yosef would have put on a sign of affirmation to another culture. He could have identified as someone else, but he chose to identify as a Jew. And that, my friends, is why Yosef merited to be buried in Israel. But let's look at Moshe. Moshe, the great tzaddik, the great, incredible tzaddik. What was he like? Now, none of us can question Moshe's identity, Moshe's love for the Jewish people, Moshe's commitment, Moshe's perseverance, Moshe's emphatic leadership. None of us can doubt that. But there was something very interesting. We are told that when Moshe ran to Midian, he had to run away from Pharaoh. He runs to Midian, and Yitro's daughters meet him at the well. And they invite him home. And they introduce him like this. They say, "Dad, we have with us an Egyptian man. Can he come to our home for dinner?" How did they introduce Moshe? The Egyptian man. Why? Moshe was a proud Jew. Moshe had to run from Egypt because he defended the Jews. But there was something about Moshe that when they introduced him as the Egyptian man, he must have set off an ear about him that he was Egyptian. And that, my friends, is the challenge with Moshe making it into Israel. The commentaries say a lot about that, which is not for this class right now. But I think today what we are struggling with as Jews is that we are not, many of us, not all of us, many of us are not proud enough to stand up and defend Israel as the Jews that inherited that land over 4,000 years ago. When God created the world, when God created the world, the land was given to us. And we start throwing dates. 1917, the Balfour Declaration. 1947, the UN. 1967, we won the war, the Six-Day War. We keep bringing contemporary proof that Israel is ours? Really? Why don't we stand up and say it the way it is? The Jews were given Israel by God when He created the world. And later on, when Abraham was given over the land of Israel and said, "This land will be yours. Your children will be in and out. They will be coming in back and forth, taken out as hostages, taken out as slaves, but they will always return to this holy space. It's yours." When Netanyahu stood up in front of the Congress a few weeks ago and announced that Israel is ours since the beginning of our nationhood, If every Arab understood that every Jew believes this, not just Netanyahu, and not just the rabbis who study, but every Jew, me and you, wherever we go, it's our land. This land is my land. This land is your land. It was given to us by God. And if we can remember that and give over that message to our children, let our children know that this land has always been ours, has always been. Come here, Kindla, come say hello. This land has always been ours, will always be ours. And very soon Mashiach will come, and we will be able to show the world that the gift Hashem gave us will return once again to the Jewish people. Yes, Yosef was a man of the world. He walked the corridors of the United Nations, the State Department. He was a loyal and faithful citizen of Egypt, and he contributed immensely to the economic growth. But he never hesitated to say the truth about Israel, the truth about the eternal home of Israel. And today, all of us have to be Josephs. Wishing you an amazing day. Am Yisrael Chai.